we had moved to London, to Milton Keynes, really kind of not suburban area. I don't want to make it out like there's just sheep and stuff there, but there isn't, like when I'm saying that you're gonna have to wait for the bus for like 30 minutes, that's how it is, country roads, all of those things. And yeah, I think I'm really lucky that my family, we had a strong sense of somebodyness. We had a strong sense of identity. Like, I'm Kenyan. I have a Kenyan Saudi background and a very, very strong East African culture. But I'm also Black, obviously. And that was never something that was hidden behind the scenes when I was growing up. From the toys that I played with, from the things that I watched, like my mom brought me a black baby doll. And obviously back then, come and think about it, we really didn't have the representation of what we do now in toys. And even from watching something like Cinderella, I watched the Black Cinderella with Brandy and Whitney Houston. So there was always a strong sense of trying to find people that look like you so that you can be able to understand that you are beautiful, that you can do these things and that you can achieve, and that there are people out there like you doing incredible things. Like I said, coming from a broken household, I think it was quite difficult because for so many people that look like us, as soon as you hear kind of the stereotype single parent background, everyone just assumes that, you know, you're up to no good, you've had multiple challenges. But for me, like, even though it was a single parent background, I've never experienced any of the hardships that come with it. Like, my mom has really held it down, and she's the reason that I do everything today. Like, sport, opportunities, you know, birthday, all of those things. There is nothing that I've never been able to do. Like, there's something I wanted to do, my mom will get that done. And I think that really helped me because I had the opportunity to learn and fail so many times, you know, whether it was in dance, going to competitions, you know, flying out the country to represent the UK, if it was through football, the amount of times we're having to drive so far. Like, I've always had such a strong support network, which allows me to do the things that I do today. But I also want to talk about what that looked like, all those things in my past. Like, a lot of us don't talk about childhood trauma. And I think, Dil, I try to talk to you about this a lot, about the fact that therapy is really important for us all. Growing up, being young, Black, ambitious, and talented is not easy because you're constantly having to battle maybe the imposter syndrome within yourself, that you're good enough to be in these places, but also the, you know, the external pressures of when you walk into a room, what are people going to think? And I think for me, that's been something that's been really, really difficult because, you know, I'm always the first, or I'm always one of the only. And I think it took me a lot of time. I think I was quite, I want to use the word amnesia. I think I didn't recognize that until I got to university. And for me, battling my mental illness made me feel even more of an imposter syndrome. So I was only 13 when I was diagnosed with severe depression, anxiety, anorexia, and paranoia. I had my first suicide attempt when I was 14, my second when I was 16, and my last when I was 20. And when I was 20, I really had an epiphany, and really, I just thank God for being there and intervening in his inception, because I wouldn't be here today. But that whole journey was always this idea that, you know, I'm not good enough. This whole journey was this idea that I have to get there, I have to prove people wrong. So it's like the internal pressures that you put on yourself. And I think that's really shaped who I am today, because I think people don't realize that sometimes being the people that we are today does come with its challenges, really does come with its challenges. But yeah, I'd like to say that I was a happy kid, really ambitious, loved doing those things, and just up for challenges. Like, I got into so many, you know, the youth parliament, youth cabinet, debating club. I was doing like Model United Nations, like all of that. And I think what I've really been able to realize is that my voice has been so important because it provides voices for those that are underrepresented. It provides voices for those that aren't confident enough to speak out, but it also provides voice for the voiceless. And so many people that look like me feel voiceless. So it's important that I speak up. Everyone's going to say this, but I have the best family in the world, right? Literally the best family. And I think everyone who meets me and sees the giants that I have in my household and the giants that I have in my family line, like, there's no reason why I should not be great as well. And my big things is, you know, my mum, my dad, huge influences in my life. Like, I remember having this conversation. I spoke about it recently. Like, I remember I was in primary school and my dad kind of sat my brother and I down and told us to kind of like look at our skin. It was really sweet, actually, the way he did it. But he said, he did this. I feel like a lot of our parents always do that. You know, this you need to be careful with. But he said, because of this, you're going to need to work 10 times harder. And it's not your fault, it's society's fault. Like, you are going to always have to prove that you can do this, that you can be there, and that you will be able to. And I think that's always been the desire in me. Like, I've always been like, cool, maybe it's a bad thing, but for me, it's really helped me become the person I am today. But because of knowing that I have to work 10 times harder, I can't live a mediocre life. You know, there's so much dependent on it. If we were to live a mediocre life, then so many things wouldn't be done, right? Like, there's so many people that have come before us, and I feel an injustice to not work as hard, because they've made it slightly easier for me to get in. And by me working 10 times harder, I'm making it easier for those that are going to come for me. As well as this, teachers, like, I realize, as much as I've had really negative experiences in school growing up, like being the only black girl in school and things like that, like being the only black girl in some of my classes, like being the only black girl who was at the higher level, right? So in terms of looking at top level, when my school started to get more black people in sort of year 10, year 11, when you look at the sets, that's when the color got whiter and whiter, right? And I remember looking around and like, out of all my GCSEs, out of pretty much all my A levels, I'm the only one. Why is this happening? Like, why does this seems to be the case? And I just had incredible teachers from primary school up until even now who would sit and speak life into me. In primary school, my teachers would write back on my shirt in year 6 and they said, one day you're going to be on The Apprentice. You know, one day you're going to have like a building. I can see Canary Wharf from my house. You're going to have a building like Canada Square 1 with your name on it. This was in year 6. Can you imagine? At that age, I don't even know anything. I'm 11. And this was the time where all those things in my household were happening. This was the time where my eating disorder started to, you know, creep into my life. This was when my parents were getting divorced and had been divorced, and like, you know, lots of family drama. And that helped me. There were already people planting seeds, do you know? And as well as that, that still became the thing that happened. Like, everywhere I went, there were little people around, particularly teachers, that would be planting seeds. They would tell me, you know what, Oxbridge. I was never thinking about Oxford or Cambridge. Never, ever, ever, ever. It was my teachers that were like, you see your grades, you are perfect for this. They made it into an opportunity. And I think sometimes we need other people to be there to remind us of the things that we often don't see. And I'm so grateful for that. But also my grandparents. Like, I have grandparents who have achieved so much incredible things. And I think being able to speak to them, and I was speaking to my grandpa the other day, and he said to me, you know, education is so important. So important. He said, you're going to finish your degree, you're going to probably do a master's. And he said, the reason why it's so important is because you are at your most powerful when you're learning. And I was like, whoa, right? So education, maybe from like an African household, education is really big, but no one had ever put it to me like that. You know, you are always in control when you were learning. You are your most powerful. And that's really helped me. But also just my older brother. My older brother has been the he set the standard. He may not think it now, because I think he always thinks I've achieved so much more, but I think he's always been the standard. I was always thinking in my head, if Al can do it, then I can, you know, with all the things, with sport, with university, like even now graduating, I was like, well, my brother graduated with a first. And my brother did it, even though he didn't want to do education. And this is someone who loves education. All those times where I feel like my mental health is creeping in, I was like, well, Al's done it, I can do it. So I think my biggest foundations has been my family, like really, really and truly my family, my sense of identity, and the acknowledgement of my blackness. My blackness is something that has allowed me to become the person I am today. And just, I'm grateful, so grateful to be black, you know, wonderful.
The next question is on entrepreneurship. How did that come about? Why did you decide this route? I mean, you do a number of things. You're a woman of many talents. but it seems that entrepreneurship is one of your main focuses.
You know what? I think I was telling you, I've just come off a talk. So I was delivering a talk to year 10s. And now going back into my journey of how I got where I am today, I think being an entrepreneur has always been something that was in my DNA. And being an entrepreneur is not about the job and the title, it's about the skills that you have and the person that you are. So I think being an entrepreneur should be referred to as a characteristic of you, not a job title. And I think being entrepreneurial has always been my thing because I've always been a problem solver, always been a problem solver, always been the person coming up with the ideas, but always being that person where if I see something not being done, I don't expect other people to do it, I'll do it. If it needs to be done, I'll do it. And my entrepreneurial journey kind of started by mistake. Like we've kind of spoken about, obviously, my mental illness journey. And sadly, obviously, at university, I relapsed. And at university, no one speaks about how you have to deal with so much, right? You actually have to deal with so much. A lot of growing up, a lot of metamorphosis, like so much is happening in that short amount of time. And then you're expected to focus on what's going to happen next, like what is going on. And for me, I realized that as someone who's really proactive and was looking for support, obviously I moved down to London for university as well. And for me, it was so scary to think of the fact that you could be on the brink of a crisis, speaking to someone or a service and them turning you away. And not because you weren't eligible, but because maybe you're too much of a crisis or you're in the wrong catchment area. And I said, my goodness, what about all the people that are not proactive, maybe not as stubborn as me? They would have given up. And I realized that I needed to change something. And I just wanted to change something in my university. You know, when I first started off that campaign, my Mind Matters too, it was literally just a part of policy. I was just going to write a policy paper with my team as part of the King's think tank. And that was it. I had no visions, no plans for it to turn into a business. It was just a campaign. We wanted, I think it was probably going to be an annual thing, just one off. And for us to kind of do that campaign, create a ball, like a gala around it, and create a policy paper and lobby Parliament, and also change what was going to happen in my university. I thought it was going to be a concrete initiative done. And it's what the world revealed to me, what society, what the connections and all those things revealed to me. And I think that's what's really important with entrepreneurship. It's about falling in love with the problem, not the solution. I fell in love with the problem. I'm still so passionate about mental health, young people and education. What I started with, which is a campaign, is no longer a campaign now and has become a mental health tech company, right? And the idea for me that's been so clear is the vision, which is obviously making mental health simpler for young adults, you know, making sure that everyone, no matter where you are, no matter what age you are, what background, you can receive support whenever and wherever you need it, still there. That was always a thing. I really just wanted to democratize and make mental health and finding support more transparent and easier. Still the same thing, from a campaign, and as you mentioned, a research and development company, and then, you know, doing our consultancy, and now into a mental health tech company. And the thing that I want to remind everyone is that you've got transferable skills. My work in a society, like a student society, and being like a vice president and doing like being a head of something really geared me up for a company. And I think people don't realize that all of the work that you're doing, and I was explaining it to year 10s as well, being a student ambassador prepared me to be a speaker. That's the best way to say it. Because I was delivering sessions to kids all the time, because I had to come up with my workshop plans, and because I had to have lesson plans and all of those things, and I had to think of things in the spot. That's how I started delivering workshops, but for mental health, something I was passionate about. So it was about finding my problem. It was about thinking about my very, very, very MVP, the most minimal thing that I could do. But it was also about understanding where I was going. So having that vision, what was it that I was trying to build? And it's also this understanding, what do you do well? That's how my entrepreneurial journey came. I didn't sit down and come up with a business plan and go, yep, I'm going to be a millionaire today. Like, I'm going to be a unicorn company. I'm trying to raise this much. And, you know, that works for some people. I'm not here to shame, but my company I was never thinking about being the next Bill Gates. It was just, I really need, this problem is affecting my life as well. I'm just as much as a user as anyone else. and I just wanted to make it change. And I said, no one else is caring for the people that look like me either in this space. And if the people that are building in this space are more diverse, then the products will be more diverse. Even when we think about smart and deep tech now, this is why I think so many more ethnic minorities, but particularly Black people, need to get into tech, because all of this deep tech, when we think about AI, VR, and, when we're thinking about utilizing like quantum physics in the space of tech, because these things are made by individuals, their ability to affect products is really key. How you see things, your perception, that bias. And so many products are made through the white lens. They're whitewashed in the same way that a lot of our educational space is whitewashed. If we're not careful, this future, this technical revolution will leave us behind again. And that's what I'm really fearful of. So if there are more people out there that are passionate, like if you're listening to this and you're really passionate about starting something, or you have a skill that you would like to just build on, go by it. Figure out what that passion is, figure out what that industry is, but also figure out the problem. What is the problem that you see, and how can you personally solve that? It may not be you building the company, but it might be you helping to build that company with other people. I think too often, so many of us want to be the leaders. I didn't think I was going to be the leader here. I didn't want to be the face. As you know, it took me 7 years to talk about my mental health, right? It's still super challenging. It's not for me. If I was going to do a business, I think it would have never been in the mental health space. I would have done like some e-commerce. I probably would have gone into properties, something like that. It wouldn't have been mental health, but I think God just had a plan for me and it's there. So I think it's about really understanding what you can do for it.
I want to talk a bit more about some of the areas of growth that have been most impactful for you. I mean, knowing you personally and being aware of where you've come from, you're obviously an incredible speaker. You communicate effectively. You have, it seems, you're a naturally born leader. Were there any areas of other skill sets that perhaps required a bit more training and cultivation?
Oh my goodness. The fact that you're saying that is crazy. Because actually my leadership was a big thing. And really over this last year was HR, recruitment and building teams. I'm definitely probably going to release a book on this in the future, but I've definitely come up with a way of how you should build teams effectively. And I'm so proud of my team out there. Many of my team, obviously during the lockdown, I've never met in person. I don't even know what their legs look like. I've seen them through the screen, but that's testament to the idea that, there's a right way to do this. And part of that comes from the vision that you want to see, the type of life that you want to see. And how I built teams was really around how feelings, right? We're human beings, not doings. And I wanted to build teams around feelings. Everyone tells you leave your feelings behind, or women are super emotional. And I just want to say that's rubbish, because so many people, we spend so much time at work than we do at home. I remember when I was in detention one time at school, and my teacher was like, you're going to have to get used to me because you spend more time at school here in my lessons than you do at home. So I'm basically your family. I was so angry because they were right. She was absolutely right. And, after you've got detention, I'm just thinking, just let me go. I'm done. I've done my time. Leave me alone. But she was absolutely right. And I think some of us realize this with work as well. You are at work more times than you are at home. And that is a testament to this type of society that we're in, but also why so many people are miserable. Because too often we forget that when you come into an office or you go to work, you want to feel something, right? So I remember asking my co-founder, said, how do you want to feel when you come into work every day? And then we started to build values based on that. And based on those values, I said, cool, I'm going to hire people based on these values. One of them was around being proactive, and one of them was about being inspired. Every day, we wanted to come into work feeling inspired. And because we wanted to feel that way and we built an environment for that, the team feel that all the time, right? So much so that my team, we missed one team meeting because we had an event. And this is when we were doing our pilot last year. And we missed our weekly brainstorms. And everyone said, nah, I need a brainstorm. I need a team meeting. And I said, unfortunately, guys, the only time I can do is like a Friday and probably early morning. And everyone said, okay, then we'll do it. My team got onto Zoom at 5:50 in the morning, right? Deep that. And that's because I wanted to invest in people. And by investing in people, like, and investing in these feelings, productivity will come tenfold, right? Because you're helping everyone unlock the best versions of themselves and ultimately the best skills within themselves and ultimately the best work. And that has helped me massively. But how I got that was about learning more about myself, right? What I do well and what I don't. I'm so impatient. I'll tell you this for a fact. My biggest hinder is I'm so impatient. So when I get really annoyed when people can't do things the same way as me. So annoyed. I'm like, I just gave you the task. Why can't you do it? Or I could do it in a day. Why can't you do it in a day? And it really made me think, stop for a second, Meg. You learn differently. When you go into a job, you are constantly thinking about how your mental illness will affect the way in which you behave and learn every day. That's everyone. Everyone has neurodiversity, everyone thinks and works differently. And I said, I wanted to create a company which embraces that and actually finds a way for everyone to unlock their best selves. And that meant me learning more about my team and asking them what they wanted, but leading from the back. So leadership, recruitment, and building teams has been a big thing. But also, I think another thing that I've really learned and been able to pick up is just building products. Like everyone now knows I'm the best person to come to for building something quickly, getting it out there, testing it and working out. And that's been such a great relief to me because these are skills that maybe I thought I had, but didn't know I had. Like coming up with strategies and being able to problem solve quickly is my forte. That's my superpower. And that allows me to actually be a CEO. So many of us who are founders you're not supposed to be the CEO. And for a long time, I was like, I don't think I'm supposed to be the CEO. I'm failing at this. I don't feel like I can't lead. But I think it was the learning, reading books, learning from others, researching, really becoming a student again and becoming a scientist. So everyone knows I use this line about becoming a scientist, but too often in the business space or wherever you are, career, I don't think it's just for being an entrepreneur, but too often, like we want to have all the answers. You want to know everything, you over plan. And actually we think that failure is a bad thing, or we think that it flopping is a bad thing, but it's not. Scientists think about outcomes, regardless whether the outcome is good or not, they're learning from it. And I said, so many of us need to think that way. And as an entrepreneur, sometimes you feel like you need to not release anything out because it's not perfect yet. And I said, let's forget perfectness. Everything that we get back is going to be good because it will allow us to reiterate. And what you said about, the essays and things that you've written is about that. It's so wrong to think that you should build and people will come. What's important is talk to the people. One of my mentors said to me, if you're not embarrassed by the first version of your product or business, you haven't done it right. And when I look back, my first website, our Instagram, it was so cringy. Ew. Even my talks, the first talk I did, and I remember having like 20,000 different slides. And one of my good friends, I remember Hayley Melinda, love her. Shout out to you, Hayley. I remember she said to me, Meg, why'd you have 20 different slides and you're not even using them? I realized, I was like, I don't need to have everything. So it's been a work in progress and I'm really grateful for that. But also the idea, another thing that I've really much learned is being able to be competent. Like competency is really key. And that's why I decided to get my part-time job as a project manager for a local council, because I wanted to be able to prove to myself mainly that I can build things, not just things that I start myself. I can come into any organization and build. I can find problems and solutions. But I also wanted to be able to figure out these systems. As an entrepreneur, you'll start off and you don't have systems in place. As an entrepreneur, you might be the only founder and the only member of your team. So you're having to do everything, right? So many of us, maybe even you at this stage, Dill, you probably don't know where you're best fit because you're at the moment, you're kind of everything. Being able to narrow down what your skill set and what you're good at is going to be important. And I think sometimes that's about helping other people build things than just focusing on you. So I think my role as an advisor and being on the board for Becoming X has helped because I'm finding out problems for that. My ideas of being sort of a mentor has really helped, but also working for other people and being able to lead from the back has made me a much, much better leader. So those are the things I've definitely learned and grown on.